Hi, we went to Spain and Portugal in October of 2025, so sit back, grab some popcorn, and join us on our wonderful journey. We had a lot of fun, saw a lot of things, experienced the culture, people, and history of the region. There are a lot of videos out there that talk about scams, top 10 beaches, and all that, but there aren't many videos that actually show you what a trip to these countries can be like. I hope you will enjoy my video and my approach to presenting an exciting travel experience. We were on a package group tour through a company called Gate 1 Travel. I am not endorsing the company, nor am I receiving any compensation from them. There are pros and cons for taking a group tour versus booking an itinerary on your own. You can do your own research as to what works best for you. Our flight arrived in Lisbon, Portugal during the morning, and the tour would not start until the next day, so we had lots of free time in the afternoon and evening, so we wandered around Lisbon on our own, and the scenes you have been watching are from us exploring the city. We went to the old section of town where there were a lot of tourists shopping and sights to see. When we were done, we took the metro back to our hotel. We had a great time, and we even got lost as we walked along random city streets, but that's all part of the fun when visiting a new city and country. The tour began with a stop at the top of King Edward VII's Park to enjoy a magnificent view over the hills of Lisbon and the River Tagus. It made for a fun photo op. Next, we visited the 16th century Belém Tower, which was built between 1515 and 1521 to be used as a fortress for the port of Portugal. There are stunning photographs of the site on the internet, but unfortunately, it was covered with scaffolding for repairs and maintenance. Near the tower is the Monument of the Discoveries. It was completed in 1960 and dedicated to Portugal's Age of Discovery during the 15th and 16th centuries. Afterwards was a visit to the Jerónimos Monastery, resting place of explorer Vasco da Gama, and a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. Construction began in 1601. It is an impressive place to visit, especially when you think it's been around for 500 years. In the afternoon, we went to Sintra, and that's a resort town in the foothills of the Sintra Mountains. The highlight was touring the National Palace of Sintra. It is considered to be a well-preserved medieval royal palace that was in use from the 15th to 19th centuries. The site is now a significant part of Portugal's cultural heritage and history. We then had some free time to wander through the tourist and shopping district, and even if you're not looking for souvenirs, the shops and watching the people is always a fun thing to do. On day 3, we boarded our bus for Seville, Spain, but on the way we stopped in Tavira, Portugal. Tavira dates back to around 1,000 years BC and was at one time settled by the Phoenicians. The Romans and Moors are also part of the history here, but today Tavira is a quaint little resort town. It's a favorite vacation spot for Europeans who want to escape the colder climates in the north, and it's a very picturesque town with lots of shopping and little cafes. It was then time to get back onto the bus and continue the journey to Seville. We eventually arrived at the hotel, settled in, and in the evening we went to a flamenco show. Flamenco is an art form originating in Spain, which is a combination of passionate dance, intricate guitar playing, and singing. Cordoba is a city in the southern part of Spain and is the capital for the Cordoba province. It was an important Roman city and a major Islamic center in the Middle Ages. It's best known for La Mezquita, an immense mosque dating from 784 AD, featuring a columned prayer hall and older Byzantine mosaics. After it became a Catholic church in 1236, Renaissance-style architecture was added in the 17th century. The structure itself underwent only minor modifications until a major building project in the 16th century inserted a new Renaissance cathedral into the center of the building. The former minaret, which had been converted to a bell tower, was also significantly remodeled around this time. The mosque structure is an important monument in the history of Islamic architecture and was highly influential on the subsequent Moorish architecture of the Western Mediterranean regions of the Muslim world. It is also one of Spain's major historic monuments and tourist attractions, and I would highly recommend visiting this site if you ever have the opportunity. Afterwards, we had free time to wander the nearby streets to explore shops and cafes and just taking in the sights and life in southern Spain. In the afternoon, we had a city tour of Seville with a stop at the Royal Alcazar of Seville. The Alcazar is a historic royal palace and one of the official residences of the Spanish royal family. It was formerly the site of the Islamic-era citadel of the city, begun in the 10th century, and then developed into a larger palace complex over several centuries. After the Castilian conquest of the city in 1248, the site was progressively rebuilt and replaced by new palaces and gardens, including a richly decorated palace built in the 1360s. Another stop was at the Plaza de España. It was built between 1914 and 1928 and was to be the centerpiece of the Ibero-American Exposition of 1929. The design was in a Moorish paradise style, with a half-mile of tiled fountains, pavilions, walls, ponds, benches, along with lush plantings of palms, orange trees, Mediterranean pines, and stylized flower beds. Numerous buildings were constructed in the park to provide spaces for the exhibition. Sightseeing always means doing a lot of walking, so let's wrap up day 4 with random sights and scenes from around Seville, Spain, as we made our way through the city. The next morning, it was back on the bus for a drive to Costa del Sol, or the Sun Coast. This is a region located on the Mediterranean Sea and a popular resort area, but first we were going to stop and tour through the town of Ronda. Ronda is known for its cliffside location in the mountains with a deep canyon, picturesque bridges, and scenic vistas. Ronda is also considered to be the birthplace of modern bullfighting, so one of the sites we visited was the Plaza de Toros, which is a bull ring. It was built between 1779 and 1785. As we all know, bullfighting is becoming less popular, but it is still part of the local culture and history. After arriving at Costa del Sol, we had a little time to walk along the Mediterranean and watch the sun set. Today we had a walking tour of Malaga, Spain, where we saw some of the prominent buildings in an old amphitheater left by the Romans. Malaga is the birthplace of the artist Picasso, but in the Picasso Museum you can only take pictures but not video. So this segment will show some of the more interesting street scenes from Malaga, Spain. Today we journeyed to Gibraltar, also known as The Rock. Gibraltar is a British territory that was formally ceded in 1713. After passing through the immigration checkpoint, we boarded a local tour bus and were driven to various points of interest within the 2.6 square mile zone. We were taken to the southernmost point along the Mediterranean, where in the distance you could see Africa. Another highlight was St. Michael's Cave, where they used colored lights to create a splendid show of the geological spectacle. The cave was created by rainwater slowly seeping through the limestone rock, which gradually dissolved the limestone and creating the natural wonder it is today. Also, Gibraltar is home to macaque monkeys. They were lounging around and the tourists enjoyed taking pictures of them, especially the babies. Despite being wild animals, they are quite comfortable being around humans. There are laws against feeding the monkeys or engaging with them, and if you do, you could be fined for huge sums of money. We were also given time to explore the town, to eat lunch, and to browse in the local shops around the tourist areas. It was an interesting day to visit Gibraltar firsthand and to see the sights before heading back to the hotel in Costa del Sol. Our next stop in the journey was a bus ride to Granada, Spain, with the highlight of the day being a tour of Alhambra. The Alhambra complex was begun in 1238 by a Muslim emir and built on an outcrop of the Sierra Nevada, which had been the site of earlier fortresses. Later rulers continuously modified the site. The most significant construction campaign, which gave the royal palaces much of their defining character, took place in the 14th century. After the conclusion of the Christian Reconquista in 1492, the site became the royal court of Ferdinand and Isabella, where Christopher Columbus received royal endorsement for his expeditions, and the palaces were partially altered. In 1526, a new Renaissance-style palace was started, but it was left uncompleted in the early 17th century. The site fell into disrepair over the following centuries, with its buildings occupied by squatters. The troops of Napoleon destroyed parts of it in 1812. After this, the Alhambra became an attraction for British, American, and other European romantic travelers. The most influential of them was Washington Irving, whose Tales of the Alhambra from 1832 brought international attention to the site. The Alhambra was one of the first Islamic monuments to become the object of modern scientific study and has been the subject of numerous restorations since the 19th century. It is now one of Spain's major tourist attractions and considered to be one of the best preserved historical Islamic sites in the world. Later we arrived at our hotel, had some dinner, and then went out to wander the streets in Granada. However, one thing we've learned is that in Spanish-speaking countries, a Catholic church can be very old and open to the public. So here are scenes from a random church we explored in Granada. It was back on the bus the next morning, and we were headed to Madrid, but with a stop in Toledo on the way. The bus will make rest stops, and sometimes there are fun, random things to see. Toledo, the former capital of Spain, still retains its medieval atmosphere and charm. Toledo is known for its extensive monumental heritage and historical coexistence of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish cultures. One stop was at the Church of Santo Tome to see the masterpiece painting by El Greco called The Burial of Count of Orgaz. The painting depicts a miracle from the 14th century where Saints Stephen and Augustine descended from heaven to bury the noble Count of Orgaz. Afterwards, we were given free time to explore the tourist section of the city, so here are more street scenes from Toledo, Spain. Our last day of the trip started with a city tour around Madrid, the first stop being at the Royal Palace of Madrid. The palace is the official residence of the Spanish royal family and is used primarily for state ceremonies. The palace is the largest royal palace in Europe and one of the largest in the world. The palace was initially built by Muslims between 860 and 880, and over the centuries, the palace has suffered damage from war, fire, and numerous construction projects helped to make what it is today. The grounds around the palace is now a place for tourists to see and explore, along with locals who enjoy the open space. The next stop was the Prado Art Museum. Their art collection is phenomenal and is considered to be on the same level as the Louvre in Paris. However, you're not allowed to do photography inside. We did have some free time to wander around outside, and there was a civil protest in progress by the museum. In the afternoon, we drove northwest of Madrid to tour through, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, El Escorial, or the royal site of the San Lorenzo de El Escorial. The site is a historical residence of the King of Spain and located in the town of the same name. It is about 28 miles from Madrid and was built between 1563 and 1584. El Escorial is the largest Renaissance building in the world. It is one of the Spanish royal sites and functions as a monastery, basilica, royal palace, Pantheon, library, museum, university, school, and hospital. The complex is also an enormous storehouse of art. Masterworks of great artists are located here. The library contains thousands of priceless manuscripts that are hundreds of years old and provide great insight into the past. Needless to say, El Escorial was an impressive place to visit. The splendor is astonishing, along with the history and culture that you can find here. If you watched the video to the end, thank you so much. It's people like you who I enjoy making these videos for. However, putting a 10-day trip into a less than 30-minute video, it doesn't do justice for what you can see and do in countries like Portugal and Spain. As for the trip, the group had a farewell dinner that evening and were off to the airport and home in the coming hours. We all said goodbye to each other at the dinner, and again, thank you for watching my video.